guys, we're back for another episode of Jay's Banter, episode number 3. My apologies, I wasn't able to be on the show last week, but that's what the post-secondary life will do to you. But anyway, we're here to talk about the Blue Jays, and we're going to have a fun time doing it. So joining me as always, my co-host Mo. How are you?
I'm doing good, Rob. How are you today? We got some technical difficulties with Robert right now. And we're back in action.
Sorry, man, that was just a little crash there. So good start to the show, much like the last week for the Blue Jays. But anyway, before we get started, how have you been? My call got cut out immediately.
I've been good. Kind of like the end of school lately. Ready to focus on summer, enjoy the summer, and most importantly, focus on this podcast. Am I right?
Yeah, absolutely. Exam season sort of takes your willpower, but we're here and we're going to make sure that we're going to give the best content for our viewers. So for our listeners. So let's start off right away. Blue Jays in the midst of a really dry spell, on the verge of getting swept by the Angels for the second time this year. Jays 0-6 against the boys from Anaheim. Last night's game, not particularly pretty. Blue Jays ended up dropping it 11-6. Mike Trout, best player in the world, Mike Trout, had himself quite a night, hit 2 home runs, both off Aaron Sanchez, total of 6 RBIs. I don't know about you, how you would describe last night's game, but for me, it was sort of like watching a car accident in slow motion. Like, you just knew that the Mike Trout big hit was coming, and there was just nothing you could do about it.
Yeah, for sure. Watching the game last night, it wasn't a pretty one, especially with Aaron Sanchez on the mound. You want him to be so good on the mound, but there's really not much you can do about it when Mike Trout's in the opposing lineup. And yesterday he went 3 for 6 with 7 RBIs, and he now has 22 home runs on the year. With Shohei Ohtani back in action in Anaheim, with all the fans excited to see Shohei and Mike Trout. It's a killer's death row, kind of like the Blue Jays' Josh Dahl and Jose Bautista back in 2015. And yesterday was just a tough game for the Blue Jays, and kind of painful to watch for the Blue Jays, especially with Rowdy Tellez having a nice game out there, 2 for 4 with a nice 3-run home run to tie it up. Unfortunately, the Angels pulled away late in the game, and they ran with it. And now the Blue Jays are on the verge of getting swept tonight with Clayton Richard on the mound in approximately 2 hours from now.
They're a good team, though. I mean, I don't know why, but I always, sort of every year when I go into the year, I always seem to overrate the Angels, mainly because I just look at their lineup, and you just see Mike Trout, you see Shohei Ohtani, obviously he was hurt, but then Justin Upton is back, and then, Albert Pujols, really not much more than a replacement-level player at this point, but that's a good team that just never seems to hit their full potential. That's just an interesting side note there. But yeah, you mentioned it very well. Sanchez, another rough outing. His last start, I believe it was Tuesday's start, went 3 2/3 innings, gave up 9 hits, 7 runs, 6 earned, had 0 strikeouts. A strikeout pitcher, 0 strikeouts in the game. Certainly not a good sign. That's the second time in a row that Sanchez didn't make it out of the 4th inning. Second start in a row, obviously. The one before was that awful start in Houston where he just could not hit the zone, walked a bunch of guys, and was really pulled early from the game. He has been brutal, to say the least, in the last 4 starts. An ERA over 11. 11.09 is his ERA over the last 4 starts. And it's not so much poor starts. Obviously, he's been bad the last stretch or so, but he's only had 3 quality starts this season. And you look at the requirements of a quality start, you need to go 6 innings and give up at least 3 runs. I mean, if you average that out to a better stat, that would work out to a 4.50 ERA. That's not that hard to do, and there have been so far between these quality starts for him. It's been really concerning. One quality start in his last 8 starts, and overall for the year, he's averaging less than 5 innings per start. It's not so much that he's been not effective. He's been bad, to say the least.
Yeah, for sure, man. Starting off the year, we had some high hopes for Aaron Sanchez and Marcus Stroman back in action for the Blue Jays. Trying to be that 1-2 combo, the ace and the second quality pitcher for the Blue Jays and Aaron Sanchez. And to start the year, Aaron Sanchez was pretty good for the Blue Jays. For the first start for him, he pitched 5 innings, giving up 3 hits, and striking out 6, and from a year last year where he had a poor year in general, derailed with injuries, it was nice to see Aaron Sanchez start the year. But as you said, ever since then, he's only had about 2 to 3 more quality starts in the year, and these past few starts, especially from May 2nd on forward, have been really brutal for Aaron Sanchez, and it makes you wonder if a new role into the bullpen will be in his foreseeable future. No,
I mean the problem with this is that who's going to start games for it? I mean, we mentioned, I believe on our first podcast we spoke about how when you trade Marcus Stroman, who's going to come in to replace. I mean, we've seen the Blue Jays, their depth be really compromised over the last few years, and especially this year. I mean, Edwin Jackson, without his DL stint, the one that was just made official a few days ago, he would have kept starting games for the Blue Jays, pitching at just a horrid clip. So, yeah, you can put him in the rotation, in the bullpen all you want, but you still need guys who can start games for you, and I'm just not sure you have those guys right there. And if Sanchez isn't a part of the future, which with every passing day it seems that he's not, might as well just put him in there and hopefully he figures it out. I mean, I don't know what to do. It's almost as if you just want to avoid talking about Sanchez altogether because he's just been so disappointing. Like, you look at his season again, once again we're reiterating back to this point, it's almost as if you believe he's not going to make it through the 5th rather than have a good start. You know what I mean? Like, of those two occurrences, I'm probably thinking that he's going to have a bad start, not make it out of the 5th inning rather than giving you a good outing. He's just been so non-dependable, and even when he's not been hurt, like he's missed a lot of games this season out of the 3rd. He came out of the 3rd inning with that fingernail issue. Even when he's been healthy enough to pitch, he hasn't pitched well.
Yeah, he has not pitched well at all this season. And you've mentioned that the Blue Jays are kind of in a pitching depth hole in terms of not having reliable arms out there to cover for pitchers like Edwin Jackson. We saw pitchers like Ryan Fairbairn pitching in the games this year. Just some spot journeyman starters for a derailed Blue Jays pitching rotation. And we're still waiting on the arrival of Ryan Borucki. We're still waiting on the arrivals of the Josh Johnson trade acquisition in, what's his name again?
Sorry?
We acquired the pitcher from Cleveland Indians last year for the Josh Johnson, who was...
Jerry Merriweather?
Julian Merriweather. Yeah, Julian Merriweather. Yeah. That's it. We're still waiting on arrivals for them in the DL. So, personally, I feel like the Jays should give these young kids a shot. Yenzi Diaz has been killing it in AA for the Blue Jays, and personally, I would be more opposed, and I would like for the Jays to give those kids a shot, the rotation, and make them stick out. Like you said, Aaron Sanchez, we're not going to move him into bullpen because it just wouldn't make sense for this team, because we don't have the pitching depth and the reliability for this team to have Aaron Sanchez in a limited role in the bullpen. And right now, we just have to gut it out for Aaron Sanchez. As you said, we just pray and pray that he makes it out 5 innings. And last night, I was really excited to see Aaron Sanchez pitch. I really wanted him to have a bounce back start. I even said it in the post-game caption on Blue Jays Wave. But unfortunately, it was a reoccurring story, and Aaron Sanchez got hit really hard in the first 3 innings and just didn't get into the rhythm he needed to get into.
It's just so disappointing to talk about Sanchez in this capacity. You just think about his career trajectory, about how he started, essentially a homegrown prospect coming up in 2014, pitching out of the bullpen, pitched very well for the Blue Jays that year. Then he sort of transitioned into the starter. It was a bit of a transition at first, but for the most part, he was a contributing member of that 2015 team. And then obviously the 2016, his elite season, his only elite season as a starter. And you just think about the kind of buzz that was with him after that season about how they needed to extend him and how Scott Boras was going to make sure he kept them away from the Jays. And now here we are, we're talking about moving into the bullpen because he's just been so disastrous. It's disappointing to say the least, because this is a guy that, I mean, I said at the beginning of the year, even this beginning of this year, I thought that he could be an ace. I thought there was ace stuff in that arm, and I still think that there is, but this is not promising.
I have another point to add for Aaron Sanchez, actually. Do you feel like his 2016 year, as opposed to these few years in 2017, 2018, now 2019, that you could look as a liability and that is like an outlier for him, that 2016 year?
I mean, it seems like it, because you look at the rest of his career as a starter. I mean, he started for a bit in 2015, the first half of the year, and he was, wishy-washy. He had some good starts, had some growing pain starts, but for the most part, I thought he was okay. He wasn't elite, but, it was his first year. You give him a break on that. But this year, obviously, not good. We've talked about that. The volumes in the last 2 years was absolutely hurt. So you can't help but take the sample size of him as a starter and say that 2016 was something other than an outlier. So I guess, I think that if he can be healthy, he'd be able to pitch at that level. But, he's been reasonably healthy this year. He's had some fingernail issues. I don't know if he still has that issue. Maybe that's what's really going on here. You're hoping that that's what's going on, because he just does not look good.
And I'm reading a stat right now via Keegan Matheson on Twitter. It says, in 44 starts since the beginning of 2017, Aaron Sanchez has pitched only 220 innings with an ERA of 5, which shows how bad Aaron Sanchez has been.
Yep. It's not been good, but enough of let's move on a little bit from eulogizing the Blue Jays fans about Aaron Sanchez, and let's move on to happier things. Some prospects who we believe that can be really, really good for this team that are on the big league roster right now. And believe it or not, the two names I'm gonna bring up just now, neither of them will be Vlad Guerrero Jr. So that's a little exciting there. Two guys that have had good weeks and, for the most part, really good stretches ever since being called up on the same day. Lourdes Gurriel Jr., Kevin Biggio. I would say that both of them right now are probably the Blue Jays' best two hitters. Would that be an overstatement? Is that a fair statement to say that right now, out of all the guys you trust in that lineup, and maybe you could put Eric Sogard there. Vlad's been okay, but ever since his hand injury in Houston, hasn't really been hitting that well. Did have a nice game yesterday, though. But would you say that's a fair statement to say that both of those guys are the two hitters you trust right now?
Yeah, man.
Or you trust the most?
With players like Brandon Drury underperforming, players like Freddie Galvis currently in holes, I feel like Lourdes Gurriel and Kevin Biggio undoubtedly have been the Blue Jays' best two hitters. And the numbers may not show up for Kevin Biggio, but I've been really impressed with his patience at the plate, and he just looks like a professional hitter. Same with Lourdes Gurriel Jr. I feel like that AAA stint in Buffalo really benefited him. He's really matured in a sense towards baseball, and he's really become a nice hitter. And I feel like in years to come, those two are gonna be cornerstones for the franchise. Backed with Vladdy and Bichette coming up, this team could be fun potentially with these four guys glued in the middle.
Kevin Biggio is the reason why I hate batting average, and the reason why I think it's, not a useless stat, but close to useless. You look at his numbers outside of batting average for the season. He's got an on-base percentage close to 360. He's got an OPS of over 800, an OPS plus of over 120. These are all great offensive stats, and he's hitting the ball extremely well. He hits the ball extremely hard. He's got great at-bats, but yet you look at his batting average, and it's just an underwhelming 212. His game goes so far beyond the batting average. He's played incredibly well, and for those of you who still use batting average to determine players' success and hitters' ability, let's stop that right now. You got to look at other things. You got to look at not only the eye test but other stats as well. He's playing really well for the Jays, and you can't help but be extremely impressed with the last few weeks that he's had. And same with Lourdes Gurriel Jr. You look at a tale of two seasons. That first start at the beginning of the year where he was just awful. He was playing second base, making throwing errors, not hitting the ball well. Gets moved to left field, and now he's crushing the ball. 8 home runs in 25 games since being called up. So, extremely, extremely impressive there. I'm really looking for those two guys to really take the team to the next level.
Yeah, and mind you, both of these players are utility players. You see Biggio getting reps at second base. You saw Biggio getting reps even at first base and in the outfield. Same with Lourdes Gurriel Jr., who, by the way, has been playing a fantastic left field. And I believe it was the game on Saturday where he had 2 outfield assists. Just a terrific player in the outfield, a terrific athlete, both of them. And I feel like these guys will be really good cornerstone players for the Blue Jays in the future. I'm
trying to look up on the spot numbers on the spot, which probably should be a little more prepared for that. But just to see exactly how Lourdes Gurriel Jr. has done in left field. The eye test looks really good, obviously, with these spectacular catches.